On Saturday, January 17th, 2026, in the heart of San Francisco, a woman stood before 25,000 people to say goodbye to her husband. Natascha Weir, who had been married to Grateful Dead legend Bob Weir for 26 years, delivered words that were simple but devastating. "Thank you for coming, my darling. Maestro, I imagine you feel the same way when Jerry died." Rolling Stone, she said to Mickey Hart, looking out at the sea of tie-dye and tears. But Natasha's tribute wasn't just about words spoken from a stage. It was about 26 years of quiet strength, of being the steady presence behind a rock icon who never stopped touring, never stopped creating, never stopped giving himself to the music. This is the story of the woman who stood beside Bob Weir through his final battle, who supported him through his last performances while he was fighting cancer, and who now carries his legacy forward with their two daughters. Background context. Zirkrio 45 To understand Natascha Weir's tribute and what it meant, you need to understand their unlikely love story. Bob Weir and Natascha Minter married on July 15, 1999, in Mill Valley, California, after a few years of dating. Wikipedia. The couple had a 20-year age difference. Bob was in his early 50s and Natascha was in her early 30s when they married. But their connection transcended age. They had originally met a few years earlier, when she was just 15 at a Grateful Dead concert. Wikipedia. Years later, they reconnected and began dating. Their first child, Shalamone, was present at her parents' marriage ceremony, being just 18 months old at that time. Having been born in 1997. Wikipedia. The couple later welcomed their second daughter, Chloe Kellia, who would grow up to become a photographer, documenting her father's performances with Dead & Company. But who was Natascha Minter before she became Natascha Weir? Her commitment to health and well-being was deeply personal. Her mother worked as a hypertension nurse at the prestigious Mayo Clinic in Rochester, whilst her father was a neurologist who co-founded the Department of Neurology at the Mayo Clinic's Phoenix branch, NME. She came from a family of healers, of people dedicated to wellness and care, traits that would become essential in her role as Bob Weir's partner. Minter maintained an active presence on social media, using her platform to champion causes ranging from women's reproductive rights to LGBTQ equality, causes that clearly aligned with Weir's own progressive values. NME. She wasn't just the wife of a rock star. She was an advocate, an activist, a woman with her own convictions and commitments. By all accounts, Minter created space for her daughters to flourish artistically whilst maintaining her own commitment to social and environmental causes. NME, she gave Chloe her first camera, a Polaroid, when she was just 7 years old, and Chloe carried it on her father's tours, beginning a photographic practice that would eventually document performances by Dead & Company, Willie Nelson, Billy Strings, and Susan Tedeschi. But perhaps most importantly, for 26 years, Natascha provided what Bob Weir needed most: stability, grounding, a home to return to after decades of being on the road. The memorial event during 8 facts. The memorial service on January 17, 2026, 7 days after Bob's death, was extraordinary in its scale and emotion. Drawing an estimated crowd of around 25,000, the program came together in the days following Weir's passing on January 10th and was organized by promoters Another Planet and Live Nation. Yahoo! The day began with a 3-block procession down Market Street. Bob Weir's wife, Natascha Minter, blows a kiss to fans from his hearse as they arrive for a memorial at Civic Center Plaza. TMZ, can you imagine that moment? Your husband of 26 years, the father of your children, the man you've watched battle cancer with courage and grace, and you're in the hearse with him, blowing kisses to thousands of strangers who loved him too. It's heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. At Civic Center Plaza, the memorial unfolded with speakers ranging from Joan Baez to John Mayer to Nancy Pelosi. Buddhist monks chanted healing prayers, videos played from Willie Nelson and other artists. But the most powerful moments came from Bob's family. "Thank you for coming, my darling. Maestro, I imagine you feel the same way when Jerry died," Rolling Stone Natascha said, addressing Mickey Hart, the only surviving founding member of the Grateful Dead who could appear in person. Her words were simple but profound. She was acknowledging that Mickey understood this particular kind of loss, the loss of a brother, a bandmate, someone you'd created magic with for decades. Eldest daughter Monet Weir, highlighted her father's role as an activist and an advocate for human rights, who, despite being a staunch Democrat, frequently referred to our friends, the Repubs, and hoped for unity. Even when people disagree, they should try to work together to build a better humanity, she said. Music can bring us together in these divided times. Keep listening to the music. Brooklyn vegan Chloe, a photographer who has documented her father and many other acts in concert, proudly proclaimed that in 30 years, a 60-year-old fan will brag to someone in their 20s about seeing the Dead when Weir was in the band. Rolling Stone. Even in grief, she was thinking about her father's legacy, about how his music would continue to matter for generations to come. The memorial concluded with everyone singing Ripple, the Grateful Dead's beloved folk ballad. John Mayer played acoustic guitar while a chorus comprised of Weir's close friends and family members, including Hart, Baez, Dead & Company's Jay Lane, Jeff Chimenti, and Otel Burbridge. Natascha, Chloe, and Monet all took the stage. Yahoo! As they sang, Natascha looked up and said she saw a hawk flying ahead. Enenma. In many Native American traditions, hawks are messengers between the earth and the spirit world. Whether you believe in such things or not, the symbolism was powerful. Bob's spirit soaring free, heading down that long, strange road. Natascha's role during Bob's final months. 8-11. To fully appreciate Natascha's tribute, you need to understand what the last 6 months of Bob Weir's life were like, and the role she played in supporting him. Bobby's final months reflected the same spirit that defined his life. Diagnosed in July, he began treatment only weeks before returning to his hometown stage for a 3-night celebration of 60 years of music at Golden Gate Park. Those performances, emotional, soulful, and full of light, were not farewells, but gifts, another act of resilience. An artist choosing, even then, to keep going by his own design. Bob Weir. When Bob Weir took the stage at Golden Gate Park last summer, few in the crowd realized it would be his final performance. The Grateful Dead founding member, who had just begun undergoing cancer treatment weeks earlier, was too focused on the music to dwell on mortality. Yet backstage, supporting him through the grueling 3-night run, was Natascha Weir, the woman who had stood by his side for 26 years of marriage, raising 2 daughters and building a life far removed from the glare of rock and roll stardom. NME. Think about what that required. Your husband has just been diagnosed with cancer. He's beginning treatment, and he's determined to play 3 shows at Golden Gate Park to celebrate 60 years of music. Most spouses would beg him to rest, to focus on his health, to cancel the shows. But Natascha understood something essential about Bob Weir. The music wasn't separate from his life. It was his life. To stop playing would have been to stop living. Even as Weir's final tour approached, even as he began his cancer treatment, she provided the stability and support that allowed him to return to the stage. Remind Magazine, she was there backstage, managing logistics, providing emotional support, making sure he had what he needed. All while dealing with her own fear and grief about what was coming. Yet perhaps Weir's greatest gift was knowing when to remain visible and when to fade into the background. Remind Magazine. This is the art of being married to a performer, understanding when your presence is needed and when it would be a distraction. Natascha mastered this balance for 26 years. When Bob died on January 10, 2026, the statement requested privacy for his family and stated that he died peacefully surrounded by his loved ones. Wikipedia Natascha and their daughters were there at the end, just as they had been throughout his career and his final battle. The real facts and truth. 11. Let's talk about what Natascha's life with Bob Weir actually looked like, beyond the public tributes and the memorial service. For 26 years, she was the counterbalance to a life spent perpetually on the road, the steady presence that made homecoming meaningful. Remind Magazine Bob Weir never really stopped touring. Even after Jerry Garcia's death in 1995, even after the original Grateful Dead disbanded, Bob formed new bands. Rat Dog, Further, Bobby Weir, and Wolfbrothers, and finally, Dead & Company. He was constantly on the road, constantly performing, constantly creating. For Natascha, this meant building a home that Bob could return to, raising 2 daughters largely on her own during tours, managing the household, and creating stability in what could have been a chaotic lifestyle. Weir's sister-in-law is Leilani Minter, a former race car driver in the ARCA racing series circuit. Media mass. So she came from a family that understood high-performance, high-pressure lifestyles. The Weir family established their primary residence in Mill Valley, California, in Marin County. This wasn't the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles or the frenetic energy of the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood where the Grateful Dead got their start. It was a quiet, beautiful community where they could raise their daughters away from the spotlight. The Weir's family life was far from conventional. Their first daughter, Shala Monet, was born in 1997 and was barely 18 months old when her parents married. She was present at the ceremony itself. NME. They built their own version of family, one that worked for them, one that honored both Bob's commitment to music and their commitment to each other and their children. In the immediate aftermath of his death, as tributes flooded social media from fellow musicians and devoted fans worldwide, Minter and their daughters, Shala Monet and Chloe Kellia, requested privacy during this devastating time. Remind magazine. But just 1 week later, they chose to step forward, to stand before 25,000 people, to share their grief publicly as a way of honoring Bob and the community he created. Analysis 13-15 Factual. So why does Natascha's tribute matter? Why does her story resonate so powerfully? First, it challenges our assumptions about what it means to be married to a rock legend. We tend to think of the spouses of famous musicians as either victims, trapped in toxic relationships with addicted artists, or accessories, beautiful people who attend red carpet events. Natascha was neither. She was a partner, an advocate, a mother, a woman with her own convictions who chose to build a life with someone whose first love was always the music. Second, her tribute at the memorial, those simple words to Mickey Hart, revealed the emotional intelligence required to be Bob Weir's partner. She understood that Mickey's loss was profound too, that he needed acknowledgement, that this wasn't just about her grief, but about the collective grief of everyone who loved Bob. Even in her darkest moment, she was thinking about others. Third, Natascha's support of Bob during his final months demonstrates what true partnership looks like. She could have insisted he stop performing, stop traveling, stop putting himself under the physical stress of touring while undergoing cancer treatment. Instead, she supported his choice to keep playing, to keep giving to the music and the community until the very end. That's not enabling. That's understanding someone so deeply that you honor their choices even when those choices are difficult. The family statement released on Saturday captures this elegantly. His loving family, Natascha, Monet, and Chloe, request privacy during this difficult time and offer their gratitude for the outpouring of love, support, and remembrance. Remind magazine. Even in their grief, they were expressing gratitude. That's who Natascha is, someone who, even in loss, finds ways to acknowledge what she has received. Fourth, Weir's death leaves Minter and their daughters as custodians of his musical and personal legacy. Remind magazine. This is a profound responsibility. How do you preserve someone's legacy while also allowing yourself to grieve? How do you honor the public figure while protecting your private memories? How do you give the world access to your husband's music and spirit while also maintaining boundaries for yourself and your children? Their actual achievements. 15-16-15. It's worth acknowledging what Natascha and Bob Weir built together over 26 years of marriage. They raised two daughters who are accomplished, artistic, and committed to social justice. Chloe has become a respected photographer, documenting concerts and performances. Monet spoke eloquently at her father's memorial about his commitment to unity and bringing people together. These aren't accidents. They're the result of intentional parenting, of creating an environment where creativity and activism could flourish. Together, Bob and Natascha used their platform to champion causes they believed in: women's rights, LGBTQ+ equality, environmental protection, animal rights. Weir was a long-term vegetarian and advocate for animal rights who was influential in the founding of Farm Sanctuary. Media mass. These weren't just Bob's causes, they were family commitments, values that Natascha shared and helped advance. They created a stable home that allowed Bob to continue performing at the highest level into his late 70s. Dead & Company became one of the highest-grossing touring acts in America, playing residencies at cutting-edge venues like the Sphere in Las Vegas. None of that would have been possible without the foundation Natascha provided. And perhaps most importantly, they showed that it's possible to have a long, loving marriage while living a life that defies conventional expectations. 26 years is a long time in any marriage, but especially in rock and roll, where relationships often crumble under the pressure of touring, fame, and the demands of creativity. Bigger lessons, 1615 to 1715. What can we learn from Natascha Weir's tribute and her 26 years with Bob? First, true partnership means supporting your spouse's calling, even when it's difficult. Natascha could have resented the endless touring, the time away, the demands that music placed on their family. Instead, she understood that the music was essential to who Bob was. She didn't just tolerate it, she actively supported it. Second, dignity in grief is a choice. Natascha and her daughters could have remained private, could have had a small family service, could have avoided the spotlight during this devastating time. Instead, they chose to share their grief with 25,000 people, to allow the community to participate in the mourning, to honor Bob's commitment to bringing people together. That requires tremendous strength. Third, legacy is built in quiet moments as much as in public performances. Bob Weir's legacy isn't just the songs he wrote or the concerts he played, it's also the family he raised, the values he instilled in his daughters, the partnership he built with Natascha. The private choices matter as much as the public achievements. Fourth, knowing when to speak and when to be silent is an art. Natascha's tribute was brief. "Thank you for coming, my darling. Maestro, I imagine you feel the same way when Jerry died." Rolling Stone. She didn't try to capture everything Bob meant to her in a long speech. She spoke a few words that honored the moment and the community, then stepped back. Sometimes the most powerful tributes are the simplest. Conclusion. 17, 15, 18. As they sang Ripple at the memorial's end, Natascha looked up and said she saw a hawk flying ahead. NME. Maybe it was just a hawk. Maybe it was something more. But the image captures something essential about this moment. Bob Weir's spirit, soaring free, and Natascha looking up, watching him go, letting him fly. There is no final curtain here. Not really, the family statement concluded. Only the sense of someone setting off again. Bob Weir, Natascha Weir, stood before 25,000 people on January 17, 2026, and said goodbye to her husband of 26 years. But her tribute wasn't really a goodbye. It was an acknowledgement that Bob Weir's journey continues, in the music that will be played for generations, in the daughters who carry his values forward, in the community he created that will continue to gather and support each other. She has been the steady presence behind a rock icon for 26 years. She supported him through his final performances while he was battling cancer. She stood beside his hearse and blew kisses to fans. She looked up at the sky and saw a hawk flying. And now, together with Monet and Chloe, she carries Bob Weir's legacy forward. Not just his musical legacy, but his legacy of community, of activism, of bringing people together, of believing that music can change the world. Fare thee well, Bobby, and to Natascha, Monet, and Chloe. Thank you for sharing him with us. Thank you for standing strong. Thank you for showing us what true partnership looks like, what dignity in grief looks like, what love looks like when it's tested by loss. The music never stops, and neither does the love.